Today on episode 120 of Rail Talk, it's grand opening, grand closing for Santa Anita's HHR-like machines. We talked to Jay Privman, former chief national correspondent for the DRF, about all things California racing, and we look forward to the Pegasus card and the Eclipse Awards. John and I will be down in Florida. John for the Eclipse Awards, me for both. Looking forward to it. This is episode 120, as I mentioned, and we're recording it on 120. How about that, John? My brain just goes cuckoo when I get little alignments like that.
You're cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, my friend Joe. Jonathan Green, general manager at DJ Stable. And you can see I'm not in the friendly confines of my home. I am actually at the World Equestrian Center in Ocala, doing some business, making some deals, shaking some people down, and everything in between. All Florida, all this week.
I'm also Joe Bianca, ownership advisor at West Point Thoroughbreds. Did I introduce myself?
Yeah, that's okay. Twice is good, though.
The opinions expressed on Rail Talk are those of hosts Joe Bianca and Jon Green and do not reflect those of anybody we work with or work for. Rail Talk is sponsored by Facing-Tipton. The Facing-Tipton January digital sale is wrapping up right as we're recording this, so hopefully you got involved either from the buyer or the seller side. Great way to restock the barn heading into the meat of the racing season as we get into like March and April. A lot of really nice horses that they don't have to be grade one winners, but you get some nice allowance horses, some minor stakes horses, and you have a lot of fun with, I think, on the calendar this year. So hopefully you got involved. If not, next opportunity in the digital sales ring is February 19th through the 24th. Digital.facingtipton.com is always where you can learn more. Entries for that sale are open until February 10th. And not to forget, the Kentucky Winter Mix sale is the first, on-site sale of the year for Facing. That's February 9th in Lexington, offering leading racing and broodmare prospects in full mares, short yearlings. It's the final breeding stock sale, basically, before the breeding sheds open for the year. So it's the last time to kind of, make a few moves in terms of your broodmare band and, horses that you might want to have long-term in that breeding shed. There have been some supplemental entries that have been added to that sale. The first group, 30 more offerings were added, and they're cataloged as hips 351 to 380. Some stakes winners, multiple stakes winners, and definitely worth checking out. Mares in Fold, City of Light, Forte, Heartspun, Liam's Map, Jackie's Warrior, and others. Some yearlings by some new sires like Corniche, Taba, and then Stalwart like Violent. So you can check out those entries online. Check out the entire catalog, including the supplements for the Kentucky Winter Mixed sale, February 9th. Go to facingtipton.com to learn more. So the news broke on Thursday that Racing on Demand, which is kind of an HHR-like gaming machine, had been 26 of them had been installed at Santa Anita Park, basically like overnight and under the cover of darkness, with good reason and out of necessity, because as we saw, 2 days later, they were ripped out by the California State Attorney General, it seems, the Department of Justice. And, just the obvious assumption is that was at the behest of the California tribes, who have essentially a monopoly on casino gaming in California. Now, they were trying to, obviously the people at Santa Anita who were, behind this know that, and they're trying to get out of it, get around it by making these pari-mutuel machines. Now, they are based on historically run races, so that in that way, it's very similar to like the instant racing stuff that we saw at Oaklawn, and then eventually at Kentucky. That's been such a boon for the industry. But you are wagering against other people. You had to pick the first three finishers of three consecutive races, and depending on who bet which combinations, that apparently was the payout that you were going to get. So it's not the same as an HHR machine or a slot machine exactly, where you're playing against the house, and the house, that's the bet taker, and that's the bet dispenser and the results dispenser. It's more relative to pari-mutuel wagering, where you're wagering against other people. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not smart enough to know like how the nuance of these laws and basically where Santa Anita stands. Scott DeRudy, who was kind of in charge of this this effort to get these machines in to support California racing, seems to think that they're on very stable legal ground, and they're going to challenge the move to take these machines out. And he basically was like, they did no investigation. They just came in kind of lock, stock, and barrel. I'm paraphrasing here, to take the machines out. I gotta say, I was really glad when I saw the first headline that they were putting them in, because it's just like finally somebody's thinking of something. You know, there's just so much standing around and whistling past the graveyard in this business. And I get it. Like 26 racing on demand machines are not going to save California racing, but at least there's something going on behind the scenes. And this specific bet was approved by the California Horse Racing Board in 2024. At least someone's trying something, because California is obviously out on an island, geographically, but also because they don't have the slot support, the gaming revenue, the subsidies that pretty much every other major horse racing state has. John, at least they're trying to do something. I hope they survive long term, but man, it's a tall task going up against the tribes in California.
Yeah, no, going against the tribes everywhere, it seems like is difficult, because we're seeing it down here in Florida as well, Joe. But, Joe, there's a couple of things that come to question in my mind. Okay. Number one, why 24 or exactly 26 machines, versus more or less? Was it that they didn't have enough machines available and that's why they went with 26? Did they feel like that 26 was, what could fit in the room, and maybe they would be able to stay under everyone's radar, or hope it was like a de minimis amount, so that way, the California Attorney General wouldn't come in and immediately remove them from the premises? Or the other theory I'm hearing, Joe, that I think is more likely is that, these machines or the wager itself was approved, like you said, 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And now they finally got it up to the point where the machines were viable, so they could bring them in and have a test case to see if they would actually work and be accepted by the end users. The theory down here, the theory I'm hearing a lot of, is that they had to have the machines put in place and have them be removed, so that way they could show, okay, we had them in here for a day and we were starting to get revenue, and therefore there's damages by them being taken away. So if it is ultimately the point where they are approved going forward, they could show, they being first, could show that they were damaged and that they should get some kind of benefit from that. So maybe it's a multi-step process that they're trying to establish. Legal nexus is the term that they use, to show that it was a viable option. It was taken away from them, and therefore, they should be able to get some kind of damages or have them be put in full time. So, is this a multi-step process? I don't know. And nobody knows except for the people behind the scenes at first, as to exactly what the strategy was and why they decided to implement it in January of 2026 with 24 or so machines, and not in a different time, different place, or more or less, actual machines themselves. So, again, like most things in the world, when it comes to business, the courts are going to have a say in whether or not this is going to be viable or this is going to be dead on arrival, and there's no recourse. But I think one of the strategies that they went under is the old saying, ask for forgiveness, not for permission.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. And that's kind of what you got to do when you're, up against such a behemoth. I think It's like you got to take any opening you potentially see. I just want to read some of the quotes, because the Pollock report, friend of the show, Ray Pollock, and his staff were on this first. Yep. And I just kind of want to read, this is from the story from Saturday after the state authorities removed the machines. Says the wager was approved by the California Horse Racing Board last year, which we mentioned, but had only been conducted on live races at Santa Anita and Del Mar. These wagering terminals were built specifically for Santa Anita by Paramax, which is a division of Amtote. And Amtote were the first ones to introduce the historical horse racing machines like Kentucky, Arkansas, and Virginia. Quoting from the story here, it says, track officials contend the racing on demand devices are legal under current California law. Santa Anita shared its written legal analysis on the issue with the Office of Attorney General Rob Bonta over 9 months ago. This is a quote from Scott DeRudy, who told this to CHRB Executive Director Scott Cheney in a letter announcing the launch of the Racing on Demand machines. Quote, as we explained during the several recent informational meetings and calls we hosted with you, certain of your staff and certain CHRB commissioners, California law currently permits racing on demand. We've shared our written legal analysis with you. We'll share it with the Office of the California. We shared it with the Office of the California Attorney General over 9 months ago. Rudy wrote that Racing on Demand is an important initiative for the sustainability of the California horse racing industry. We intend to work cooperatively with the TOC, Del Mar, and other California racing stakeholders to ensure that this initiative is successful. So their position is that it's not a slot machine. It doesn't violate the compacts that have given the Native Americans this kind of monopoly on all the casinos. Obviously, the Native American tribes feel differently, and it's. I'm now quoting from Victor Roca, who is the conference chair of the National Indian Gaming Association. He said, "It doesn't take a genius to know what was going to happen next. I hope Santa Anita loses its liquor license for this clearly illegal act." So
yeah, that was a leap.
Fired.
That was a leap.
Shots fired there,
I
dude.
hope their kids don't get Christmas presents like that.
Talk about like scorched earth right there. Immediately trying to go after the liquor license. And then Drudy said on Saturday, they stand firmly behind their legal analysis. It operates under California's longstanding pari-mutuel wagering laws, using a wager that regulators have already approved. The Attorney General Bonta received our comprehensive legal analysis nearly a year ago. He had ample time to raise concerns. They did not. We proceeded on solid legal ground. And since the state is choosing to challenge that now, we're fully prepared to defend ourselves. We're confident the law is clear. As John said, it'll go to the courts now. I just apparently like there was no warrant. There was no there was no precursor to this. Like they basically just came through and lifted the machines. And the only evidence we have that they did it was like some people were posting videos of it. And I don't know, bro. Like not to broaden it out too much, but I don't know that the law means a whole lot these days. And especially when it comes to entrenched interests with a ton of money and a monopoly, like I have unfortunately lost faith in a lot of the legal and judicial system that it works to adjudicate cases fairly. And so many times it's a hand-picked judge, it's a hand-picked attorney general. They get all sorts of donations from, big wigs, and in this case, in the casino industry. I'm sure there were donations to this guy's campaign. I haven't looked exactly at the funding, but I would wager to guess, pari-mutually speaking, of course, that there were some donations to this guy's campaign. And it's just like, I wish I had like the kind of naivety that I grew up with in America, where it's like, well, the facts of the case will be laid out, and the right will end up in the winning side. Like I just don't feel like that anymore, John. And especially with the way this was exercised, like. God, I wish I felt like there was going to be a fair shake here for Santa Anita, but I don't feel that way.
No, and like you said, at the beginning of the segment, California needs to do something, and the people in California know that they need to do something. Otherwise, they are going to fall off the face of the racing world at this point. And you see it in different avenues. You see it in the fact that their purse money isn't competitive with a lot of the other jurisdictions in racing. You see it with the recent, TOBA Graded Stakes Committee, not only this year, but the previous couple of years of consistently downgrading California races, because they're just not able to get horses imported into California to race in some of their black type and bigger races. And, they need to have something done, in order to help, basically them falling off a cliff, and not being relevant anymore, but not being part of the industry. And that's a huge blow to the industry if California is no longer viable. That was always one of the stalwarts. It was always one of the pillars of the industry, is that you had year-round racing in California, you had year-round racing in New York, you had year-round racing in Kentucky and Florida, and guess what? All these places, one by one, are falling off the face of the earth as far as a racing calendar standpoint. So, again, this we'll find out what the final answers are. I think you're right about the overarching issues of society, as far as right isn't always going to win anymore, and you can have the facts on your side, but if you don't have the judge on your side, then it's falling back into the Wild West, unfortunately.
Yeah. No doubt. And I again, this is something where the industry's got to kind of rally behind this, and like all the people that are, doing all the high powered lawyers in this business. I feel like you got to at least have an ear to what's going on in California, because this could be a landmark thing, and it's. Obviously, 26 machines aren't, like I said, aren't going to make or break the California racing business. But if this can lead to an expansion of supplemental revenue, like every other major racing state has, I mean, that's the difference of life and death, most likely, for California racing. And I think this is an all hands on deck situation. And I hope that people rally to support the people in California racing that are actually trying to do something, instead of just complaining on Twitter about how the races are getting downgraded. Like this is a real tangible thing to try to give California racing a shot in arm. I hope it works out. Rail Talk is sponsored by Epic Insurance Brokers, one of the nation's top retail insurance brokers, providing expertise across key lines of insurance like property and casualty, employee benefits, and unique specialty insurance. Another guy who is very unique and special is Chris Moore, who leads Epic's equine specialty practice. You see him all over the places, very active on racing Twitter. One of the few non-toxic people on racing Twitter, I must say. So, shout out to Chris for somehow threading that needle, because he's obviously he's a real guy too. He's not full of it. He's a real dude, but obviously very, very well informed on the industry, and obviously well informed on the insurance side of the industry, because he owns and breeds horses himself. You see him at the sales all the time, at the races. He can tell you the difference between, prospective full insurance versus insuring the mare, and, kind of where you should fall on whether you need both or one or the other. Chris is insuring his prospective full for 100% of the purchase price. That was the best thing for his investment thesis. He's going to be able to figure out what's best for your program. And, similar to the Green Group, it can be a little bit of a labyrinth, a little bit of a mess, trying to figure out the insurance needs of your individual business. And there's nobody in the industry we would trust before Chris to do that. He does it for John. He does it for all sorts of West Point partners. He really is that guy when it comes to insuring your assets. And you can give Chris a call or shoot him a text to start that conversation at 317-650-4519. And that leads us to this week's
Epic Performance of the Week.
And I thought this would be a fitting tribute to Chris this week. I know he usually likes to keep it horse-centric, but I think he'll make an exception for us to celebrate Indiana University winning a football national championship. Like, what? Like, what universe am I living in that Indiana is now a football school? And in all seriousness, like, this, to me, is maybe the best coaching job in the history of sports. I don't say that lightly. Curt Cignetti came and took over a program that literally had the most losses of any D1 program in college football history. And 2 years later, the team is 16-0 and beat all manner of blue bloods on the way to a very, very well-deserved national championship. So shout out to everybody in Bloomington. Been a basketball school for as long as anybody can remember. Obviously, Hoosiers, it's a huge thing in the state. But now, John, Indiana is the center of the college football world. How about that?
It was a shocker, and I love their motto of make it possible. Or I'm not saying it necessarily exactly the way, so I probably should delete it from this commercial. But my point is, make it possible, which also works with the insurance that Chris brings to the table. Of, hey, Chris, I'm not really sure how to do this. Make it possible, and he's like, I got you.
Yeah, no, he's the man. And like I said, with the sales coming around, with breeding season starting up, that's a lot. There's a lot to process. And, you need a guy who knows the business inside and out to be in charge of all that. So call Chris, text him, 317-650-4519. And shout out to the Indiana football team and Curt Cignetti and all the Hoosier Nation out there for your first national championship. This week's Epic Performance of the Week. Rail Talk is sponsored by the Green Group, the number one accounting firm in the horse business. No other CPA firm knows the horse industry like they do. And Len and DJ Stable have a massive footprint in the business with the horses they own, with the horses they breed, with the horses they sell. They've won over 2,600 races. So obviously they know the business inside and out. And to that note, the Green Group has almost 1,000 clients in the horse business because people trust them because they know the expertise comes from years and years and years and years of doing this, both from the business side and from the accounting side. So Len and the Green Group have to be your first stop when you're thinking about how to do your taxes for 2025. Do it soon. We're already towards the end of January. A lot of people, are calling Len's hotline already to get him, on the case for their 2025 taxes. So don't wait. Call Len and the Green Group at what's that number? Michael Agresta.
732-634-5100. Green Group 732.
Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Len and the Green Group. You can also go to greenco.com to learn more about how they can help you. And obviously, I got to mention the exclusive half-hour consultation in it for you, Rail Talk listener. If you call in at that aforementioned number, and we'll put it up on the screen once more, you definitely want to do that sooner rather than later. And obviously, Len is he's a fount of knowledge in addition to all the business help that he can give you and the tax help he can give you. He's a guy that just loves to talk racing and has a ton of advice, from decades in the industry doing this the right way. But you don't have to take it from me. Take it from yet another satisfied Green Group customer, Scott Kintz of 6K's Training. We'll probably see some horses and have some horses on our short list from the Scott Kintz's consignment at the upcoming OBS March sale. Listen to Scott tell you all about the benefits of working with Len and the Green Group.
They're great guys. Honesty, they do everything right, and they're easy to deal with. And they like horses, and so do I. So they know what they need to do. I mean, it's the same with having a vet that does horses. You don't want a cat vet working on your horses because they're not too familiar. He's a great man. I've known Mr. Green for a long time. I had mares for him when I worked at Tailor Made, and he's been very easy to deal with and understands what we go through as well as what he goes through.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate you. Appreciate Len and the Green Group. Cannot wait to see you guys at the Eclipse Awards for another well-earned honor and victory. We love you guys. We appreciate all the support. Obviously, Len is second to none in this business. I'm not telling you anything you don't already know if you've met him before. But if you haven't, you want to start the conversation, call him up at 634-5100 or go to greenco.com. So we're so thrilled to bring this next guest back to the Rail Talk studio. He is the former chief national correspondent of the Daily Racing Forum, now enjoying retirement by the water, as you can see from his tan. Jay Privman, welcome to the show.
It's the 3 J's, right?
Yes, sir.
Hey, Joe John.
Oh, so excited to have you, man. Like you're kind of like one of these guys that now that you're retired, I want to check in with every once in a while to make sure I'm not going crazy and that like things are, especially in California racing, like things are pretty dire and they need a lot of intervention from time to time. I don't know how closely you were following the story of them putting in these like HHR-esque machines last week and then pulling them out 2 days later. What was your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, they didn't pull them out. The California Department of Justice pulled them out. It seemed almost like it was a prohibition raid, right? Where they came in and they wanted to smash the casks and let all the alcohol run out. Look, it's obvious that California needs to be on a par with other jurisdictions in terms of purses. They're playing with one hand tied behind their back compared to New York or Arkansas right now, obviously. And that, to me, is the biggest impediment to progress in California right now. To me, money solves all. So I really think that Santa Anita, they're trying to find a workaround to get additional sources of revenue. Maybe this wasn't the most graceful way to try and pull it off, but I think they got tired of waiting for the California Attorney General to give them an answer. And since without him having said no, they took that as, well, maybe it's sort of yes, and let's see how this goes. And look, this isn't the end of this. It sounds like this is going to go to court, and then they'll see if they can get legal, get it ruled to be legal, and keep them. Otherwise, they're going to get smashed and like the prohibition casks.
Right. And Jay, I'm going to have you put your czar crown on. Okay. You're racing czar of California for the next year. What things would you do or what things would you recommend that California racing does to try to make it more viable?
Again, Joe, I really think that the purse money has to get on to par with other places, or we're going to end up being kind of a B-level circuit, because this isn't a sustainable model. For that to happen, to me, there needs to be additional sources of revenue. I know there have been some people who have said that maybe the Breeders' Cup should help out or the Jockey Club should help out. California, though, can't only rely on something like that. They need to do what they can do. And I don't know if there's any way of making some sort of deal with the Indians where the Indians could have a cut of the on-track revenue from historical racing machines at Santa Anita. If that would be, if I could wave my wand and say, this could be done by fiat, I would want that to happen. I don't know that is something that can happen, but that to me seems like the most logical way for everybody to be happy here, for the Indians to get a cut and not feel like somebody's going behind their back and doing something that they shouldn't be doing, but also for the sport to be on a more level playing field, because it's falling farther and farther behind here compared to the rest of the country. When you look at the purse money that's on offer here for maiden races, first level allowance, and even stakes races, it's just not competitive right now with other parts of the country.
Don't worry, we're not far away from rule by fiat in America, judging the way that things are going. So it might be on the table. I'm curious about your consumption of racing. It's a grind covering the sport, especially with so many of the issues and the controversies that pop up. Like, do you miss the covering it at all, or do you like just being like a more of a passive observer and just going to the races?
Yeah, I'm happy with my life now. I don't miss the day-to-day grind. I do miss the people, and I live not far from Del Mar, so when the races are here, I'm out there pretty often, and I enjoy just going out in the morning. I enjoy being out there in the afternoon and seeing people. I only get up to Santa Anita maybe once a month. That part of it is what I miss the most, and sort of feeling plugged in. When you're out on a daily basis, you kind of feel like what's going on. I don't feel like I have my finger quite on the pulse like I used to, but I read everything. I still look at the charts and watch the replays all the time. I still follow it, but I don't miss the deadline pressure, the 24/7 of how the job evolved in the long time that I did it. From when I started out, you sent in your story and it was published the next morning in a newspaper. By the time I was done, it was like being a doctor on call.
Right. And Jay, just take us through the decades long career that you've had of some of the good things that the industry has evolved into or has accomplished over that window.
Well, I think the biggest days, John, have gotten even bigger. When you look at the Triple Crown races or the Breeders' Cup, those events have become much bigger than they were when I started out, 40 some odd years ago now. The day-to-day product, I think, has weakened. Obviously, that's a function of the foal crops, which are significantly down from their heights of years ago. But I think the big days are still things that people are very interested in. I think racing does those extremely well. Obviously, we've gotten a lot better in terms of safety and in terms of the proactive way in which things have to happen in terms of veterinary exams. I think trainers are much more attuned to what they need to do now. I think they understand the social license that racing has a lot more than they did maybe 10 years ago. And they're reacting to that in a way that they need to in order for the sport to continue to grow and thrive. So I think those are some of the ways that things have improved.
I'm curious about your thought on the concentration of really, really expensive horses into a handful of hands, and there's no greater example, purer example of it than in California. And Bob Baffert has so many of the good horses, and it certainly does not help. You mentioned we already have the challenge of not having the alternate gaming revenue. But then when a guy has pretty much every good horse, every great stakes race is going to have 3 or 4 of them in them. I feel like at your point, at various points in your career, you were either thought of as like a Baffert hater or a Baffert apologist because he's just such a polarizing figure in California racing. Do you think that there needs to be more of an effort for people to spread around those horses out there? Would that help in any meaningful way?
So the short answer is yes, but let me have a quick sidebar. I mean, I'd like to say that I was a Baffert fair person during my career, and I think people wanted me to either bash him when I thought he should have been treated more fairly from that standpoint, and maybe, lean the other way when it went the other way. And to me, I thought I was, fair to him over the years in terms of the way I covered him. It would be nice if the horses were dispersed to more people here. And again, this is more of a function of dirt racing, right? Baffert doesn't have grass horses, but we still have small fields in the grass stakes here. So I think it's a simplistic way to sort of frame things, to say that it's only because of the horses being concentrated with Baffert that the field sizes here are small. Because if you look at the grass stakes, usually have smaller fields, and he's not even involved in those. But nobody's screaming, "Hey, Phil D'Amato needs to give up some of those grass horses to make these grass races more competitive." So I'm saying, from a fairness standpoint, I think that's one way of looking at it. But what I don't understand is why more people don't have horses out here with other trainers, when you consider that, for instance, in the last 6 Santa Anita Derbies, which is obviously the premier prep for the Kentucky Derby out here, Baffert has won one of them, and that was by proxy when he had to turn a horse over to Tim Yakteen. So you could say 5 of the last 6 Santa Anita Derbies have been won by someone other than Bob Baffert. So it's not like he's dominating the most significant race for 3-year-olds out here. And yet, you don't see Michael McCarthy with as many horses, at least 2-year-old males that would then become 3-year-olds as Baffert does, or John Sadler or Richard Mandela. And I don't understand why that is. And I don't think that's a fault necessarily of Baffert or people like Zidane or SF Racing and that partnership. That's who they want to use. I don't understand why other entities are not stocking other trainers with significant numbers out here. And I think the short answer to that is probably the prize money.
Yeah, no doubt. No, I can attest to that. Like, we have horses mostly. West Point has horses mostly with John Sadler. We got a couple with Michael McCarthy, but and we do want to have a footprint out there long term, but it's a tough sell to invest more right now into California racing with the state of things, unfortunately. Go ahead, John.
No, and Jay, you mentioned Bob Baffert, and obviously the connection there, and there was a horse named after you that he trains, that subsequently
you have
overlap
a little bit
because
of involvement in that, don't you?
Yeah, we were one of the co-breeders, exactly. Were you there for the Tokyo Cup when the horse won? And if so, what was that like to hear your name over the loudspeaker and then ultimately in the winner's circle?
Yeah, it's been really a lot of fun. I've seen all his races but one. He ran in a maiden race at Churchill in his 3rd start of his career. His 2nd start as a 3-year-old. That's the only one I haven't been at. So I was at both wins at Del Mar, the maiden and the allowance win. I was at the 3rd place finish in the Goodwood when Nevada Beach and Full Serrano beat him. And then, yes, we were at the Tokyo City, which was a lot of fun. Maybe the best part, John, was probably that he ran down a West Point horse, right? In the final strides there. So.
That's great.
From all angles.
Did you know that they were going to name the horse after you? Did they ask your permission, or was it, hey, we did this and now we're going to ask for forgiveness?
Yeah, exactly. No, it was in January it was basically 2 years ago now. January of 24, I got a text message from Tom Ryan that said, "We're in the process of naming our 2-year-olds. Would you be okay if we named one of them after you?" And I was like, my God, yeah, that would be incredible. So thank you. I said, you have to promise me one thing, though. He's like, what's that? I said, you cannot geld him. But I didn't pick out, it wasn't like he sent, as you know, they buy about 20 yearling males every year for that partnership. And it wasn't like he sent me the list and said, pick one. He just said, we're gonna name one. And about 2 days later, he sent me a text back. He said, here's the one that we named for you, the Justify out of Monos.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's got to give you chills when you see the horse in the form and then you hear his name, over the announcer.
Yeah. It really got to me, the first time he ran at Del Mar, which turned out to be when he broke his maiden. I got really emotional. I was in the paddock before the race, and Scott Hazelton came up to interview me, and I got kind of choked up because the first track, I grew up in the LA area, but the first track I ever went to was Del Mar on a family vacation when I was 11 years old. My dad was the quintessential $2 horse player. He was a fan, but he bet $2 a race. That was it. And he passed away about 11 years ago, and he would have gotten the biggest kick out of seeing a horse with, that name running at Del Mar. And then when he won, it just made it all the more special.
That's beautiful, man. I love that you had that experience. Another exciting experience is going to happen this week at the Eclipse Awards because, not to bury the lead, journalism term right there, Jay Privman has been named the recipient of the Eclipse Award for feature commentary writing for his retrospective on the life of the late D. Wayne Lukas. It appeared in the DRF last summer. So first of all, congratulations, Jay. Very, very well deserved. And it just can you give us a little bit of background on how that piece came together, why you think it was so, well received. And, even as a retired guy still winning awards, that's got to be pretty satisfying.
Yeah, I feel like I was kind of like the Philip Rivers of racing writers. I came off this lengthy layoff, and at least I completed the pass, right? So the way it came about was, when unfortunately it was first announced that Wayne was going into hospice care, I got a call from Frank Miramati, who's the track announcer at Santa Anita and at Saratoga, and he grew up in the LA area, and we met 30 years ago now, but for the 10 years prior to that, he had read my stuff in my first job at the LA Daily News. And then, when I moved on to the Racing Forum, he called me up and he said, you need to do a retrospective on this guy, if and when, the unfortunate and inevitable happens. And I'm like, Frank, I'm retired. I don't want to do this. He says, I appreciate you saying that. He says, no, you need to do it. He was just insistent about it. He says, who do I call at the Racing Forum to tell them that you need to do this? And I said, here's the editor's number. If he says it's a go, I'll do it. So he did. He called Jody Swavey, who's the editor-in-chief of the Daily Racing Forum. And 5 minutes later, Jody Swavey called me and said, I'd like for you to do this. So I put the piece together, and, we had it ready to go. As you know, Joe, from having worked in journalism, oftentimes pieces like that are done in advance of the inevitable. Unfortunately, it sounds morbid, but it's a way to get something like that done so that it's ready to go when the inevitable happens. And so I had done all of it except for basically the when part of the story. And when Wayne passed away on a Saturday night, I sent the story in and we posted it on that Sunday. And it was a kind of it was an opinion piece and sort of an essay because I had the perspective that I think a lot of people who came to the sport more recently didn't really have, in terms of, he was sort of the lovable coach, everybody's favorite uncle the last sort of 20 years of his career, but he wasn't like that when he first came around. And I wanted to try and put in perspective the story arc that he had, and to show that, people are complicated. Not everybody's sort of a caricature of their best or worst moments. And I thought it was significant with him that the respect that he obviously craved when he first came around really came to him by the end, and he became a beloved figure, and rightly so.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's a great piece. Like you said, it takes you kind of through that journey that he had and just how he became one of the most beloved figures in racing, in the last 10, 20 years of his life. So definitely highly recommend going to check it out. The title is Lukas Morphed from Caustic to Avuncular. Avuncular is a great $10 word by the way. Pulled that out of his journalism fedora right there. But congratulations in all seriousness, Jay. Like very, very well deserved. We love having you on the show. Just kind of give us your wisdom from a career very well spent helping the industry that you love. So thanks for the time, Jay.
I appreciate it. And hopefully the three of us will all be holding an Eclipse Award trophy on Thursday night, right?
Let's go. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Can't wait. Rail Talk is sponsored by Tailor Made, tailormadefarm.com, to learn about all the services they provide for the industry, from sales to stallions to boarding to partnerships. They do a little bit of everything and do it in a top class way. We're honored to be, even involved and associated with Tailor Made. And, Jon mentioned earlier on when you're talking about the Eclipses, that Jeff Hazlett's going to be on stage with you and maybe me when you accept your award for nitrogen. You just talk a little bit about why that's the case and why the folks at Tailor Made are so important to you that you would bring them up on stage for a moment like that.
Yeah, well, really, literally on nitrogen's example, Jeff was involved from preconception. We sat down with Jeff and his team and said, here's some of the matings that we feel make sense for Tiffany Case and for all the mares for that matter. And we go through it not only one by one, but then we look at it holistically, the entire group. How much are we spending? Do we need to tweak here? If we have too many representation of certain family lines here, all those analytics go into it. Then Jeff brings in his knowledge as well about physical, match to match. Jeff's favorite saying is, you breed a potato to a potato so you can get a potato. And that's exactly, basically you want to breed like to like so you can replicate it and get a good looking foal out of that mating. And that's just on the mating side. Then fast forward to, when the foals are born and when they're being raised and how they're developed and how they're put together, in different pods, and from a psychological standpoint. So that way, not all the alphas are in together and not all the betas are in together, and they're constantly mixing and matching and trying to get into the horse's psychology. So that way the horses don't fret and all they have to worry about is just like where they're going to lay in the sun and for a nap, and not, oh my God, am I going to get enough feed today? Am I going to get run off? Am I going to have, am I going to be nervous all the time? So it's all of those things that Jeff has learned over the 40 years or so that he's been in the business, that he exposes us to, and makes me think outside of just, hey, this makes sense from a financial standpoint. So, you got the mating, and then the foaling, and then the raising, and then of course the selling. And Joe, I don't have to tell you about how important and how influential, and added, value added the Tailor Made team is when it comes to selling horses. Look no further than what we did with Tiffany Case, a couple of weeks ago, or even fast forward before that, where we had 32 horses in the sale and all 32 sold. And oh, by the way, they sold for about a third more, in gross in mass than what we anticipated. So from top to bottom of that organization, from soup to nuts about everything they do, I can't say enough about Tailor Made. And quite frankly, if they weren't so busy, we would have more Tailor Made reps come to the Eclipse Award to celebrate not only this particular hopeful victory, but also just everything they do for us.
So we're recording this on Tuesday evening. That's why you see the shadows on my face. Flying down to Florida tomorrow, and Jon is as well. And we're both going to be. No. You there now?
Did you even listen to my intro?
Oh, damn. No. I thought you were home. Cool. All right.
It's like that I'm not in the comfy confines.
I black out whenever you start talking. I thought we established this.
At that point, you were like, did I say Joe Bianca? That's right.
I was trying to remember whether I introduced myself or not. There's a lot of moving parts going on in this brain at all times. Nevertheless, so Jon is in Florida. I'll be there tomorrow. And Thursday night are the Eclipse Awards, the 55th annual Eclipse Awards.
Yep.
That sounds right. We'll fact check that. 55. Yeah. All right. Sweet. See, the brain still works. It's an exciting time for both of us because we're both connected to horses that are likely to be champions. I think Nitrogen is a lock. I think she's 99 to 100% to win. I think Super Corridor probably like 80-20, something like that. But I want to know from Jon, because I've never been to Racing's Nerd Prom before. And I got my tux. I'm all fitted and, really excited to go to the breakers for the first time. Jon, I want to ask you, as someone who's done this before, who's had champions, multiple champions, what to expect from Eclipse Night?
Joe, it's a rush of emotion, a bunch of different times throughout the night. I found that when I was putting on the tuxedo, I was getting like a little bit of flush and a little bit heart palpitations, because it's like, oh my God, like I'm this close to having the best horse of her division. And then you kind of calm down a little bit. You get in the car, you go. And when you get to the Breakers is a huge hotel complex. The campus is monstrous. So when you get there and you pull in, you start following the signs for the Eclipse Awards, and there literally is a red carpet that you walk past. And in this year's case, because it's being promoted and sponsored by our friends at Resolute Racing, there's a big place for you to take pictures and stuff like that. So again, you get the adrenaline.
360 glam cam? Am I going to get a 360
Only if you
glam
bring
cam?
one. And then the paparazzi are there, and they're like, move out of the way, get out of the shot. So that
we want to see Joey Blanco.
Yeah, exactly. Joe Blanco. We want to see Len. And then like they put you in like a little what I'll call a holding room. Okay. Which they serve little, snacks and you can get a little champagne and stuff like that. But that's really, once they open the doors to the main room and you get one of the, concierge to like bring you to your table, that's when I start getting nervous, because at that point it's like, holy shit, like we're here now, we're in the room, and now it's just down to 20,000 foals being born in that class, to a third of them never win, to a third of those that make it and get, and then 5% overall that get into stake races. And you go through the math in your head and you're like, oh my God, I'm one of the top 3 in my division, which is saying something, because even if you finish third, it's not like you finished last. It's that, you were the third best horse in your division at that point. And then they go through, thankfully for you, yours is going to be one of the first divisions. If not the first one, depending on how they card it all. But basically, yeah, you're going to know win, lose, or draw almost within the first 20 minutes, half an hour of the event. And then the rest is a blur, Joe. Like from the time that they announce your division and they go up on the screen with the highlights, the little 30-second highlight blurb of your horse. At that point, to me, like my mind is just going blank, and it's like, please just call our name. Please just call our name, because it's an event that you want to be seen at. It's an event you want to be a part of. It's an e-ticket ride, as far as like how much fun it is and stuff like that. But you want to come home with a trophy. I mean, it's kind of like that. If your team's in the Super Bowl, would you rather have them lost in the conference, championship, or, and not make it to the Super Bowl? Or do you want to have the experience? I think you want to have the experience of being there. So it's really good. I couldn't tell you what I ate at either of the two when Jaywalk or Wonder Wheel won. I couldn't tell you what I said really, other than I have, visual proof of the acceptance award. But it goes by so quickly. And what I'll equate it to is like your wedding, where you have, not yours in particular, but just the wedding, that you're involved with. And it's like, all this time of, getting ready and getting everything situated and having all the logistics done and everything like that. And then like, once you say, I do, it's like, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, what just happened? It's the next day. Like it's almost like, you just can't believe how quickly it goes by. So my advice to you, even though you didn't ask, my advice to you is going to be just to try to like step out and just relax and like, just take it all in, because you don't know, as phenomenal of a program as West Point is, and as good of a program as DJ is, there's no guarantee that you're going to have another horse that's going to be in the top 3 of its division. So just try to take it all in and enjoy it and everything. And, and then run your ass up on the stage the second that they announce Super Corridor.
We'll see. There's going to be a lot of people there, a lot of partners. So like if I get shuffled out of the camera frame, I'll be okay with that. But yeah, as long as she wins, it's interesting because it's not toot my own horn, but I do have an Eclipse Award.
Well, you won personally. Yeah.
And then, shout out to Patty and her whole team who were instrumental in making that happen. But that was the year, that was the COVID year, and we were doing everything remotely and like via Zoom or whatever it was. And I remember them telling us to keep our acceptance speeches short. And it was tough because I had my part and then Patty had her part. And it was like 45 seconds. And then we sent it in. They sent it back. I was like, no, you got to make it shorter than that. So we had,
I remember that story.
We were like down to like the motor mouth 30-second acceptance speech, which I appreciated because, like, you know, a lot of times just watching these ceremonies, the speeches go on forever. Dude, you really need to wrap it up button. But it will be cool to be there, you know, as someone who grew up like, you know, in the shitty old New York City OTBs and, you know, really kind of slumming it as a horse player for a really long time before I was able to get my foot in the door of the industry.
You've come a long way.
Yeah,
You've come a very long way.
You know, I'm all grown up, and it definitely will be an honor to be there. And, you know, very excited for you guys as well, even though you've done it before. Obviously, it doesn't get old. So, yeah, looking forward to that.
What color tuxedo? What color tuxedo did you get?
Lime green, right? That's what it's supposed to be.
That's what you're for newbies. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
the first time you go, you wear the lime green, right?
That's what I figured.
With the top hat.
Yes.
With the top hat, matching top hat. Yeah, exactly.
The Willy Wonka top hat that's kind of going to be what makes me stand out. No, just a regular black tux. Might have a little flare on the bow tie, but other than that, this will be the first time I ever wore a tuxedo.
Yeah,
I've never worn a tuxedo before. Yeah, I didn't wear one for my wedding. I've been to a bunch of other weddings, but never one that was like formal where I was like the best man or anything like that. So yeah, that's gonna be a new experience for me. And yeah,
and where are you sitting?
I don't know. Not with you. That's all I know.
You're not invited.
I was like, put me as far away on the other side of the room as possible from Jon Green.
I will give you one hint. My friend, and that is if your table, the closer the table is to the dais, the more likely it is that you win.
Oh, interesting.
So if you want, because they don't want people to be like, excuse me, pardon me, excuse me, you know, and have like a 5-minute, you know, like window of nobody being up there or like a bunch of. So that's a tidbit and a hint that you should definitely focus on. So if your table is closer than medallion, that's good. Okay,
gotcha. Interesting. That's good input. Yeah, because if I was too far away, I was just going to do like the Price is Right, come on down, like doing cartwheels down the aisle and stuff to the stage. So that's good insight. But yeah, we're really stoked. And you know, for anybody who's going to be watching at home, you know, look for me or John. John will definitely get on stage. I don't know if I'm going to get on stage, but John will be there. And you know, obviously appreciate all the support and, you know, everybody that voted for us. And everybody who didn't can go to hell. No, just kidding. That's
yeah, exactly. No. Do you want to come up on stage with us if we're fortunate enough to win?
Well, it depends. Do I have to like hold your tails or like your drink or whatever? Or am I going to be a full-fledged member of the team?
Listen, brother, you're a full-fledged member of the tribe as far as I'm concerned. So you're good to go. Right. No, but like Aaron's going to be there. Samantha Perry's going to be there. Lauren Carlisle's going to be there.
Nice.
And the usual suspects, you know, are going to be there as well. So Jeff Hazlett from Tailor Made is coming. I think that guy Mark Cassie's probably going to weasel his way up there, you know, because he had something to do with this. I don't know, but you know, it's not like
it's not like
he bred the horse or anything like that. All he did was train it to win a grade one almost.
Such a glory hog. Guy always wants to be in front of the camera. Can't get enough of his celebrity, you know. That's definitely Mark to a T. Just kidding. That's the exact opposite of Mark Cassie. Anyway, it also leads into the Eclipse is kind of like I don't want to say the appetizer because it's a huge deal, but it's kind of like the lead in to the Pegasus weekend down at Gulfstream. You mentioned Sam Perry. She and I are supposed to go hit the town in Miami sometime this weekend. So looking forward to seeing her. But it's, you know, Pegasus card, listen, we say this every year. It isn't what it was when it first started, but it's still a great event. Like in the dead of winter when it's 10 degrees everywhere. It's great to, you know, get down to Florida. We got like 60 something partners coming. Wow. We got Cugino running in the Pegasus turf. So we're very, very excited for Cooge. He's got like a great, you know, really awesome, devoted fan base of horses. And I think he's got a really good shot. He drew outside. He's second choice on the morning line after Wolfie's Dino scratched. Program trading is, you know, drawn closer to the inside and is going to be the favorite for Chad Brown. But, you know, he's not he's a nice horse. He's a grade 1 winner, obviously, but he's not like, bricks and mortar or some horse that I think you have to be, deadly afraid of. Like that we drew outside. Like I said, I think we get a nice stalk and trip. There's not a whole lot of speed. And to me, that's the one thing that stuck out to me from looking at the turf and the dirt race. I think totally different pace scenarios. I really don't see a whole lot of speed other than Cabo Spirit in the turf race. So I think there's going to be like some shuffling early on. We'll see if Beach Gold or One Stripe go towards the inside, but I really like our chances to just be sitting second or third outside of Cabo Spirit. Whereas you look at the dirt race and it's pretty much all speed. Disco Time is the favorite, and he's really stepping up. He's a multiple stakes winner. He's got the recency edge. He ran a 107 buyer last time, winning the Dwyer Stakes. But this is his first time above grade 3 company. He's undefeated, but he drew the rail, and he's got a bunch of speed to his outside. Full Serrano, 2 doors down. We just, when his Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile was right up on the pace. He's run quick early in a lot of his different races. Matticat Road has got to be going under Mike Smith for Bob Baffert. Tappan Street isn't super fast, but he's got to be closed. Captain Cook stretching out, I think has got to go. Mika from the outside almost stole the Cigar Mile going to the front. And it looks like a lot of speed. And maybe it sets things up for White Barrio again, John. Like every time I think that horse has fallen off, he pops up with another big effort. And, this race could set up for him. And, especially after he didn't get to run really at all in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, I got to think that this is the race they've been pointing for a while after, obviously, the Dirt Mile thing. But since then, this has been the focus.
Yeah. And we wax poetically about the way that the Pegasus was originally, when people had to put up, a big sum of money to run in it. And basically it was like a winner take all type scenario where each entry, I should say, was paying just a shit ton of money. And if I remember correctly, the idea from Frank Stronach was that, people would own like an entry ticket, and they would buy it and they would own it every year, and they could like lease it out to other people. That was like the big thought process. And that quickly fell apart. But, I remember the first couple of years of Pegasus Stakes. Pegasus, exactly. And they were just phenomenal, top to bottom. And I think that this group is the first one in the past couple of years that I personally think, rivals those early races, early, iterations of the Pegasus. But Joe, the thing that I was also impressed with, and again, we say a lot of good and bad things about racing offices, they did a very good job of the undercard here. I mean, there are a lot of great bettable and watchable races that we'll be talking about. Well, you'll be talking about. I'm going to be on vacation, but that the show will be talking about next week, where there's going to be a lot of great. I mean, it is basically like almost, I don't want to say Breeders' Cup 2.0, but for all intents and purposes, it is a breath of fresh air, in racing, because the past 3-4 weeks, it's
bleak,
dour, crappy racing for all intents and purposes.
No, I agree. I mean, it's a terrific undercard. It's the first running of the Christophe Clement Stakes, which is the renamed Le Prevoyant. I didn't think there could be 2 races named the same thing, because I know that Nairo is planning to rename the Sword Dancer this summer, the Christophe Clement Stakes. I don't know. I got to see how that shakes out. But nevertheless, obviously still great to see Christophe honored with a graded stake. We're racing in the McKnight with Ohana Honor. That's a deep race. Obviously the Pegasus Turf Philly division is worth looking at. And I think, honestly, maybe outside of Disco Time, the most exciting horse on the card might be running in the Fred Hooper. And that's Life and Times, who is drawing the rail for is Michael Tabor's own Todd Pletcher trains. Super interesting horse, because he's a 5-year-old. He did not debut until November 1st at Aqueduct. So 11 months into his 4-year-old season was when he made his first start. He won by 5 3/4 lengths at 11-1 at Aqueduct by it's just with 104 buyer, like a crazy impressive debut. Time to Win, who was third in that race, has come back to win a couple of times. So it's a live race. And then he came back in an allowance on December 6th, cruised in hand. He drew the inside. That's a tough spot, especially with that chute going a mile. But this is the kind of horse that I think if he had like one more start, they would have run him in the Pegasus. Like that's the level of talent he appears to have. And, I think it was Matt Dinnerman who posted this on Twitter. Is like why there's so much hype around Life and Times. He smoked Accelerize in a workout, and Accelerize just won the Louisiana Stakes over the weekend at Fairgrounds. Really nice, like progressive horse for Pletcher. And there's a workout video of Life and Times and Accelerize going head to head until about the 8th pole, and then Life and Times completely leaves him behind. So he's super interesting. Knightsbridge, I think, is also interesting as like an up and coming older horse for Bill Mott and Godolphin towards the outside. He just crushed them in the Mr. Prospector. He's a horse that's run a lot of big races in a short amount of time, relatively speaking. I don't know, John. This is the kind of horse that, irrespective of what happens in the Pegasus, I would expect him, if he stays together, to be like a pretty short price for the Whitney, Stephen Foster, all those kind of races.
Yeah,
this summer.
Just what again, make it about us. Just what our gray horse needs is Sandman needs is another good older horse that's going to be running these long races. But Joe, you mentioned like 4 or 5 different races, and then again, because this is a Homer pod, we have horsepower running in the carousel in the 6th race as well, which is a handicap, but on the all weather, on the Tapeta. And there's a couple of horses coming in from Canada that'll be favorites in the race. Siege of Boston, Jimmy Toner, Bail Us Out from the Ivorone group, Prevent, Joke Star, like I said, coming from Canada, and then Horsepower, who we've been trying to stretch out over the past, really the past year or so of his career, to try to allow him to use some of that speed that he has. And we'll see how the old gray gelding does against this group. But again, really almost from race 1 all the way through to the end to race 13, there are a lot of great races, and I think you're going to have, as a handicapper, you're going to have a really good time betting these races.
Yeah, no, it starts at 11 o'clock on Saturday, 13 total races culminating in the Pegasus World Cup, which is at 5:39 p.m. So yeah, this is like I said, like we were saying, in the dead of winter and kind of like a wasteland of quality racing. This is a card you definitely want to get involved in. And yeah, it's going to be great to be in the fun in the sun in Florida. If I haven't mentioned it yet, it's 10 degrees here in New York, and can't wait to see everybody.
Well, it's only
down
50
there.
Here in Ocala, so it's not like it's a winter.
Poor baby. Bundle up, little Johnny. See you there. All right, so that's going to do it for episode 120 of Rail Talk. Thank you to my co-pilot, Jon Green, Skyping in or whatever he's doing from the comfort of his hotel in Ocala. I remembered this time. I remember that you're in Ocala. Don't worry. I got it the 3rd time. But yeah, I'll see you down in Florida Thursday night for the Eclipse Awards. Wish us luck, everybody. We love you for all the support that you've sent our way, leading up to this, and we're very, very excited. If you're at Gulfstream this weekend, the Pegasus Day, you want to come by, say hello. Just my DMs are open unless you're a creep, and I'll be glad to come chat and shoot the shit with you guys. But obviously love all the fans, and a very exciting week for all of Rail Talk Nation, I hope, not just us. Thank you to our producer Patty Wolf, our associate producers Julia Agresta and Nathan Wilkinson. Please subscribe to the show if you haven't yet. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, we are everywhere. And we'll love having you as part of the Rail Talk family. And we'll see you next week. John won't be back next week, but I will be back with a guest co-host. Even though it's my birthday week, I will be powering through for the strength of the brand. So thank you, John. Enjoy your time off, and I'll see most of you next week back here on Rail Talk.